But first, in the run-up to the election, we're giving you the chance to tell us how you would handle some of the country's biggest issues. This is If You Were Prime Minister. Jeremy's handiwork there, and today we are asking how you would stop the small boats. 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a call. So a record number of people have now crossed the channel in small boats since January. A total of 12,901 asylum seekers have made the treacherous journey this year, passing the 6-month record previously set in 2022. All the major parties have published plans to stop small boats crossing, ranging from the Rwanda scheme to enacting safe and legal routes into the UK. Owen, how would you solve it?
Safe and legal routes. So at the beginning of this century, we had more asylum seekers applying than we do now, but almost none of them came by boats. The reason for the massive increase is because we shut down safe and legal routes. So if we look at the main countries people are coming from, Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq are right up there. Two of those countries, I don't want to have to just keep reminding people, are countries that we went to war in. We destabilised those countries and caused huge bloodshed, or contributed to that, along with, principally, to be fair, the United States. Gross human rights abuses and mass killings of civilians, which we have never, ever come to terms with as a country. I think if you're going to go around invading countries and occupying those countries, go to war, you can't really then get that upset when people from those countries come here. All I'll say just quickly is, as perspective, there's about 110 million displaced people on Earth. Most of those stay in their own country. Of those
surrounding areas?
No, most stay in their own country. Of the ones who leave their countries, the vast majority stay in neighbouring countries. These are some of the poorest countries on earth, like Lebanon, for example. A tiny proportion overall come to richer countries in Europe, and they generally come there because they can speak the language. So from the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, they speak French, so they mostly just stay in France. The ones who come here, like in Afghanistan, again, we have an imperial past in Afghanistan. Britain was at war and occupied, invaded Afghanistan in the 19th century. That didn't go well either. It's called the graveyard of empires for a reason. But, you know, we have people who come here. I mean, I've interviewed refugees and they speak very good English. They're coming here for that reason, because if you're going to come to a country, because they can't speak French, so that it's much harder to come to a country where you're unable to get a job, you can't speak the language. So all I say is introduce those safe legal routes. And my brother, I'm very proud of him, he took a Ukrainian family in. We have those safe and legal routes. That's worked. We should be doing the same.
For other countries.
And including people in Afghanistan who worked, I have to say, with the occupying armies. And some of those haven't been allowed to enter the country.
Dawn, safe and legal routes, is that the way to go?
Look, any sensible person knows that is the only answer. I mean, I think one way of doing it, I mean, we're talking hypothetically here, obviously, because it costs loads of money, you need more people. But establishing some kind of processing centre.
For Albanians, for example?
Processing centre linked to the British embassies around the country, around the world. So people could apply for a safe and legal way to claim asylum. So go to the embassy, claim asylum via the embassy. Because the question is, how are we stopping the small boats? Not how are we going to sort out the asylum problem wholesale, but how are we going to stop those boats?
But if we did this, and let's say a certain number of Albanians apply, we're going to reject a number of them.
Fine. But they've applied legally and then we reject them. Fine.
Are they not then going to continue and try and come?
No, because this is what I would do then. I would actually, the illegal asylum bill, I would actually, Illegal Migration Act, I would make that stand and say that states if you enter the UK by illegal routes, i.e. the boats or backs of lorries, then you can never claim asylum in this country. But if you do those two things, that will stop the small boats, which is the question.
But you can't have people in Afghanistan there's no British embassy there.
No, that's why, as you mentioned earlier on, 76% of people who leave their country settle in the area around them. So I would make sure the countries neighbouring Afghanistan, they leave Afghanistan, they apply for asylum in whatever European country.
Pakistan, for example.
Yeah, they apply in the British embassy.
Because at the moment, a lot of those
or the French embassy, or the Italian embassy.
A lot of Afghans who worked with the British are just stuck in Pakistan.
No, absolutely.
In limbo. But the problem is we need to speed up processing. I think that's what we agree. You have to speed up the process because people are just left in limbo.
Okay.
But at the moment, realistically, they've come up with this Rwanda scheme, which is a failure. It's not worked. It doesn't deter anyone anyway. It would only ever take a tiny proportion. It's hugely expensive. It's cruel. Rwanda's not a safe country. Okay. So we should just be pragmatic about it.
All right, we've covered a few of the policies that some of the parties are pledging, but let's now speak to 5 News political editor Andy Bell. Hi, Andy. We've heard what the panel would do, but if you could just run through what the main parties are pledging.
Yes, well, as we've heard there, I mean, the centrepiece, clearly, Storm, of the Conservative proposals is the Rwanda scheme based around the Illegal Migration Act, which basically says if someone arrives who they class as an illegal migrant, for instance, in a small boat, those people will be sent to Rwanda in Africa, where their claims will be processed. And if their claims are successful, they don't come back to the UK, they stay in Rwanda. The government says that would be a deterrent. Now, Labour say they would scrap that plan. Instead, they would put more money and resources into actually processing people coming here and to get that process moving faster, and would set up something called a Border Security Command to try and control the traffic across the channel. The Liberal Democrats, not surprisingly, more liberal in their approach. They would scrap the Rwanda plan as well and would say they would open up more safe routes. Reform UK, again, probably not surprisingly, the most hard line when it comes to people crossing on small boats, saying anyone arriving would be detained and then deported. And if necessary, the boats that are coming across the channel would be picked up and taken back to France even before they've got to the coast of the UK. And finally, the Greens, they have an extremely liberal view of what to do about small boat crossings. They say they would end what they call a hostile environment to people arriving, and for instance would really reduce the cost of visas. That's more on the legal migration route, but that gives you an idea of how they would approach the whole migration issue. Rishi Sunak has been saying that the Rwanda scheme is a deterrent, and he was saying that if Labour were to get into power, that would result in large numbers, even more people trying to cross the channel. This is what he's had to say.
Those illegal migrants will not be on planes to Rwanda. They will be out on our streets putting pressure on public services. And by the way, I can tell you now, they are queuing up in Calais waiting for a Starmer government so they can come here and stay here. That is the choice.
So, Andy, what has Starmer said on this issue more specifically?
Well, Keir Starmer makes great play of the fact that he was once the Director of Public Prosecutions, and he says that in that time he was instrumental in taking down international gangs that were involved in terrorism, for instance, or drug smuggling. And he's saying there's no reason why you can't do that with the people smuggling gangs. So he says continually he would smash the gangs, in his phrase. And when I spoke to him a few days ago, I asked him about that and said, you know, surely everyone was trying to smash the gangs. This wasn't really an answer to the problem.
Well, we're getting set up a new command, new powers, counter-terrorism powers within that command. Look at any inspectorate report and you'll see what the government is doing is not enough. And we do want a new security agreement with the EU. At the moment, if there's a joint operation to deal with gangs, we, the UK, can't lead it. That's got to be wrong. So we will take the necessary steps to make sure we can take these gangs down. I'm not going to accept that somehow these are the only gangs. You can take down a terrorist gang, take down a drug-running gang, but apparently you can't take down these smuggling gangs. I don't accept that.
Now, Storm, as you said earlier, there's been about 13,000 people who've crossed in small boats already this year. It's actually a very small number if you compare it with the hundreds of thousands who come through legal routes to the UK, but clearly that small boats, those small boat crossings, that illegal migration is a massive political issue which all the parties have to respond to.
And they have indeed, and thank you for covering that. Thank you very much, Andy. Andy Bell, 5 News political editor. Let's take some calls. We've heard from the panel what they would do. We've heard what the parties are pledging. How do you think we solve the small boats crisis? John from Hertfordshire, you're up first. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, good afternoon. The question is, how do you stop the small boats? What I'm about to do is not make a political point, but just give a suggestion on how these boats may be stopped. I live in France 6 months of the year. I have to pass through Calais regularly. Calais is like a prison camp at the moment. There are miles and miles and miles of barbed wire. My solution would be, is to reach an agreement with the French authorities, which is going to be difficult now after Brexit, and to cordon off all the main roads into Calais, because that's where the boats are coming from. They're coming into Calais by road, not by plane or by parachute. They're coming in by road. And if you stop these white vans, search them, destroy the boats that are on board, it will stop the people coming across. No boats, no crossings.
OK, John, Owen.
You can't just shut down Calais, John. I think people in Calais might have one or two things to say about all main roads into the city in which they live being cordoned off. But that would just mean the end of Calais. I mean, everyone would have to leave. And you can't impose on a city and its residents, turning it into basically in somewhere where to come in or out, you have to be searched by the authorities.
Additional to that, John, we're already talking to France to try and stop the number of small boats coming across, and I can't remember how much it is now, but millions. We already send millions, I think it's hundreds of millions actually, to France to try and reduce the number of small boats. Doesn't seem to work. They're not really paying much heed to us now that we've left.
If I can take up Owen's point on the imposition on the people of Calais, I go to Calais very regularly. Calais, the people of Calais now are in one desperate situation. And to put up with the inconvenience of cordoning off, searching people coming into Calais with the boats, because that's how they're getting in and that's how they're coming across here. It's a non-political point I'm making.
It is political. Imposing a hard border on the entire surroundings of Calais, whether you call it politics or not, it is political by definition. I've been to Calais. I've also gone there. I've done lots of interviews with locals and with refugees and migrants there. There is no way in hell you can impose a literal hard border around the entire area of Calais without destroying its economy completely and making it somewhere it's impossible to live. It just means the end of Calais.
And on top of that, John, why would France agree to do that?
Exactly. Why would they agree to do it?
Well, they're not insane. They're not insane. That's why.
The French have no intention of letting these people stay. They have signs up saying "to the beach," and they have no intention to stop these people. They don't want to stop them.
John, would you accept
Calais don't want them.
Would you accept a hard border around Hertfordshire, where you're from, where every single person has to go through a border essentially to enter Hertfordshire? You would?
Yes, I would.
That would be the end of Hertfordshire as an economy. It would collapse.
No, it would not. It would not.
Are you kidding?
I would accept it if the conditions in Hertfordshire were the same as they are in Calais.
So a hard border between Hertfordshire and the rest of England?
I would say that the British government probably would have more of a say about a border around Hertfordshire than they do around Calais, and that is the issue with your suggestion. But I like a suggestion that we've not heard before, and I've certainly not heard that one. John, thank you very much. James from London, what's your thoughts on how we solve the small boats crisis?
Well, to start with, I think some of the views of certain people is absolutely horrendous.
What do you mean, James?
I don't know, just that when you actually listen to people in the sense of for example, if something actually went wrong wherever it is, you would generally, in terms of think that we'd all come together and basically come to a conclusion and try and make it easier and better for everyone. Like, they're coming from war-torn countries and people are actually starving and dying, famine, all these things. Like, I actually really back what Owen's saying. You can't just stop this happening, like burn boats and these kind of things, and expect it not to. Like, it's just resolving things. Like, it's actually mental. Like, it is. Even
James,
the gentleman that just spoke.
I'm clear that you think we should have more of an open door policy when it comes to helping people from war-torn countries. I've got that. But surely, as a compassionate person, you don't want people to be taking that route across the channel, because it is treacherous and dangerous, and we hear time and time again of boats capsizing and people dying, women and children, men dying. Nobody wants anybody to suffer that sort of fate. So the idea is to stop those small boats crossing, and how would you do that?
Well, that would be working with, again, I don't know. I don't know exactly how it would work, but again, like extending our reach in the sense of reducing the boats by obviously having the correct channels that are open to these people that need to cross or need to get out of these situations that they're in. That's the only way it would work.
Now, the criticism of that, James, is we would have a lot more applications than we are getting via the small routes route. And so we would have a lot more people potentially coming into this country. And people argue that our infrastructure is just not there to support the people that we have. How can we house that many people when we have homeless people on our street now?
All right, let's be honest in the sense of things. When in government, when people are looking for money, there's always ways to make money. That's actually period. Like everyone says, oh, we're running out of money and we're running out of this, but there's always
find it when they need it.
Of course, just like if anyone in any situation.
We've got an ageing population. Our birth rate is collapsing in this country. We're not going to be able to sustain our public services, just to be brutal about it, unless we have more younger people in this country. The Conservatives keep saying, well, we need to encourage people to have more kids. I mean, given the cost of childcare and the fact, for example, you have the 2-child benefit limit, they've done everything possible to stop that. But the truth is, it's just a hard truth people need to understand. Our ageing population needs to be supported.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone is suggesting that we need to have more young people supporting the ageing population, speaking as part of that ageing population.
Same.
However, we want the people... Yeah, actually, yeah, it's true. We want the people here that are here legally. This question is about how we're stopping people coming here illegally on the boats.
Crossing the channel. James, thank you very much for your call. Lucy from Essex, what's your view on this?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hello, panel. Hello, everyone. Hi. So Rishi Sunak said that he was going to stop the boats, but actually he's not stopping the boats. He's just letting the people arrive and then relocating them.
Yes, although
different.
But Lucy, he believes that actually setting out the Rwanda policy means that less people will try and get over to Britain because nobody wants to end up in Rwanda. That's kind of the theory. So it's a deterrent rather than stopping people do the crossing.
And I understand that, but it costs vast amounts of money, which we then have to give to other countries. What we need is, the Dover Straits is a 21-mile stretch of water. We have 3 boats patrolling that area. We need 20 of our own boats. Why can't we use the money to pay for our own boats? They're not sneaking up on us. We have drones.
And Lucy, when we've got those boats, what are we going to do when we catch the dinghies that are coming over here?
Take them back to French waters. We know what they're doing and where they've come from.
But that's a policy that we could have done when we were in the European Union. But now that Brexit has happened, we don't have that luxury anymore legally.
But they told us we needed to Brexit to resolve it, and it's not done it now.
Well, Lisa,
we need to leave the ECHR.
I'm sorry to say
that's not going to do it.
Look, we have to accept the referendum result. But you were told a lie, OK? It just wasn't true. It was never going to happen. In practice, this makes it harder. We've got to abide by the law. And the truth is now, because of Brexit, we have now a hard break with the European Union. So what you're suggesting isn't practical. It's also, by the way, dangerous. You can't actually just have a situation where you're going around trying to intercept very flimsy boats, because actually what happens is they try and evade the boats who are after them, and that puts their lives at risk. You can't end up in a situation where you're resulting in far more people being killed, and you can't break the law. There are no easy solutions to this, otherwise it would have been solved.
The solution is we stop them getting in the boats in the first place.
Yes,
and that's
safe
what
legal
this
rates.
is about. Exactly.
But Lucy, you're not the only person to feel that. We get many people calling up saying that we should just send them back to France. It's just harder than that might seem. Thank you for your call. Andy from Angus, what's your thoughts?
Oh, there, yeah. Right. I think it's an easy way to solve the problem, which everyone's missing out on.
Great.
Basically, you've got the reason where they're crossing. Why are they coming in? Forget about refugee status. We know all about that. Yeah. The point is, they're coming over for benefits. A lot of them are. Yeah. If you take away that principle of coming into the country to get rewarded for coming in here by getting benefits, you stop all that and helping out and accommodation, and you allow them free access. You say to them, right, what we do, P&O ferries, we'll pay for your crossing because you've got $4,500 in your pocket, supposedly. You use that money to find your own accommodation, your own food and your lodgings, everything here. You work for 2 years. After your 2 years, you can get your benefit and get help towards NHS, dentistry, all the rest.
Andy, at the moment, they're given £37.75 a week. It's not...
I know that. That's
right. Okay, it's a tiny sum of money. The idea people are coming to Britain to get £37.75 given the cost of living in this country, I'm sorry, that's not the real world. And also, to be honest, They're banned from working. I agree, they should be allowed to work. That would make things a lot easier. If you are an asylum seeker...
It would also make it more attractive to come here, Owen. That's not the point of this debate. The point is stopping them coming here illegally.
But Andy,
so allowing them to work once they're here legally,
allowing them to work would just mean more people can contribute. We need people to... That would actually... And they would pay tax.
But Andy, what's the alternative? They come over here in a small boat, we offer them absolutely nothing, so they are now homeless on our streets, potentially ill...
No, you're still creating the problem of letting the boats come in. If we actually process them ourselves by bringing them in on the boats, DNA tested, they commit crime, they go straight back. If you're a genuine refugee, you'll come across on that route. If you're not, sorry, but there's a lot in the country where everyone sees it day to day. They wander in the streets, in groups, you know. They do get a lot of help. They get a lot more than £37.50.
They don't. Hold on. Just to get the stats out there, I think it's 92% of people that come over here in small boats apply for asylum, and of that 92%, I think 83%.
Yeah, but that's only because we have processed such a tiny amount of them. That statistic gets getting trotted out all the time.
But it is
such a tiny amount have been processed.
A high percentage.
The ones we've processed are the very obvious ones.
No, well,
okay.
Literally.
Well,
Elaine from West Lothian. Andy, thank you very much for your call. Elaine from West Lothian. I just want to get through as many calls as possible. What's your theory on how we stop the small boats crisis?
Hi, Storm. I would have a processing/detention centre in France, working with the French to process the migrants, starting with the women and children and the ones that have been refused asylum in multiple other countries. They'll be on the first plane back. More cooperation on the beaches, because the French police are just waving them off because they don't want them either.
How do we enforce that, Elaine? We're already trying to get the police in France to do something about it, and they're just not.
We refuse to have a processing centre, though. But that you're asking.
So I see. If we put a processing centre, you think that would ease it all? Well, you would before that anyway, Owen, wouldn't you?
Well, we need to... Well, I would just massively invest in processing, obviously. But yeah. I think we'll keep coming back to a really basic point. I'm sorry to have to keep making this point. But we voted, 52% of the country voted for less cooperation with the European Union. But that's just the reality. And then voted for a government in 2019 which argued for the hardest possible Brexit. If you wanted cooperation with European countries, then we'd have to go back in time and have a different result.
Hold on, Owen.
Most
of Europe now is actually following that road. It'd be very interesting to see what happens if France, and it's very likely, gets a more far-right government. What happens with this situation?
Great, we'll have a far-right government. Great.
Thank you, Elaine, for your call.
It was great. I said it'd be interesting to see what...